How does democracy work in companies? There are actually 4 levels of democracy that I'm going to show to you today. Worker cooperatives are worker-owned and worker-managed. So there's already 2 levels that, that people kind of know about, but there are more levels to it. So let's go through it one by one. The first level of industrial democracy is the management level, the top level. So, for example, in Germany, there are works councils, employee councils, where they can co-determine, co-decide on a management level. So workers can elect representatives where they can represent their interests in the company. So that's the top area. In worker co-ops, obviously, people can elect their leaders, which is even more democratic. So this is kind of a representational democracy at company level. In small democratic collectives, there is no leadership area because people decide everything together. So they come together in plenary meetings and decide major decisions together. But still, this is kind of the decision-making level. So I would still call it the kind of top level or the management level. Now, on the other side, the bottom level of workplace democracy is the ownership. In worker cooperatives, they are owned by the members, by the people working there. So the working people are not just employees, they're actually members of the worker co-op. They own the co-op. This is very important because property means power. The people who own a company, they have the power to decide to close it or to fire the management or to change the product, or to do whatever they want with the company. So ownership and property are very, very important for workplace democracy. In companies where you have strong unions, they can maybe co-determine on the top level, on the management level, but they have absolutely no say on the ground level, which is the property. And there are actually a lot of interesting examples of companies that are owned by the workers. For example, W.L. Gore, the company that produces Gore-Tex, is quite a known company that is owned by the workers. The newspaper Financial Times is owned by Nikkei, which is a Japanese company which is owned by owners. In Germany, there used to be a hospital that was worker-owned until last year due to Corona and different crises in the hospital system in Germany. It was transformed, but it used to work very well. And in Spain, there is the Mondragon cooperative complex. It's actually a cooperative of cooperatives. So they have a lot of membership cooperatives, which are all worker-owned. And it's actually the 7th largest employer in Spain. And all these cooperatives, so they have their own bank, they have their own universities, they have industrial companies, and they're all worker-owned. So there are a lot of examples of companies which are owned by the workforce. So we've talked about the top level of democracy at the workplace and the ground level, which is the property. Now, there is still the bit in the middle missing. And this is actually quite important. The middle level of democracy is the everyday self-organizations on the team level. And in some cooperatives are owned by the workers and they elect their leadership, but they're still very hierarchical. And that means that I can elect the management maybe every 2 or 3 years or every 4 years or maybe even every year. But between that, I don't have much say in the day-to-day life, day-to-day work. The middle area of democracy is very important to actually have a say on a day-to-day level. So the team organization, self-organized teams, this is very important to actually give people a say on a day-to-day basis. And this is something which is more found in some startups, which are actually not democratic at all, but they experiment a lot with self-organized teams. So this is something that cooperatives can learn from from innovative startups. So these are the three levels. You have the management area, you have the property area, and you have in the middle, you have the day-to-day democratic teams, which are self-organized. Maybe they decide things together within their teams, or they elect team speakers. There's different forms of self-organized teams. Now, I said there were 4 levels of democracy, and the 4th level is external to the company. So in some companies, a purely worker-organized decision-making, like from a democratical point of view, would not be sufficient. For example, in the health system, it's not only the workers who are stakeholders, it's also the general public, the patients. Or, so for example, the German railways, they are owned by the state, and that way the common good can theoretically be represented within the company. Or the British NHS would be an example where it's publicly owned because it's a common good, and it's not only the workers that should have a say, it's also the public that should have a say. So the 4th level is the general public. Together with that, we have 4 levels of democracy in companies: the management level, the property level, the day-to-day team self-organization, and the general public, which represents the common good. All these 4 areas together make a company really democratic.